the way you used to pronounce himself, that if you don't have this issue of you don't want to pay circulation fees for vehicle circulation, you don't have to drive the car. If you don't want to pay these levies, then you go manufacture in Uganda, then export to Kenya.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. So it is actually that informed the public outrage. Well, he has proved himself that he talks the opposite of what he intends. Remember what he said when he was being sworn in on his inaugural speech. He made a statement that was casting aspersion on the character of the former president by saying that I will treat my deputy president better than the way I was treated. And yet, the exact opposite has taken place.
And you're just in time for Richard Mwanja Exclusive, your only point of call on matters, political and governance analysis here in Kenya and across the region. I'm yours truly, Richard Mwanja. It is a distinct privilege to have your company with us. Now today, we are talking a raft of issues in the world of politics and governance. But first things first, allow me to introduce the gentleman who is going to help me bring the conversation home. He is none other than the proud son of Cherangani, former minister, Ruto Arap Kirwa. Today, looking sharp, many people are used to seeing your trademark counter suits. Why the new, change of wardrobe and all that?
Well, July and June are a bit cold, so I'm changing for this particular purpose, and also to give a new face to the budget. I'm pretending I'm reading the budget.
You're putting up the serious face.
Yeah, the way Professor was donning a very nice suit. But he never gave us a good story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what did you make of the submissions of PS for National Treasurer Chris Kiptoo when he appeared at Citizen TV, looking not really to be in touch with even the provisions of the Finance Bill of 2024?
My worry is that I think this government operates in pigeonholes. Pigeonholes in the sense that the budget process usually starts even much earlier, like in February, or even some of it early January. And those developments are supposed to be built both by the ministry and various ministries, and also the committee responsible for the budget. So I would have expected Chris Kiptoo, somebody that I have tremendous respect for, to have acquainted himself with various provisions of the budget. Otherwise, it looked to any observer like perhaps, because it does not go to the cabinet, which cabinet is always slated in State House, and that's the procedure. Perhaps the budget came from State House, and he himself was totally unaware, which also creates another disconnect between the government itself, because that's the executive. So what the PS knows should be known by the CS and vice versa. So it worried me. I thought Chris was put in a deep end when possibly he had not waded the waters.
So such speak into a disjointed government when it comes to policy making and also policy communication.
Yeah, it is a disjointed in government, because in the past, budget was a secret between the minister and perhaps the president. And they would get, like, for example, if there were any levies that the Minister for Agriculture for the time being was responsible for signing off those levies or signing into action those levies, you will find it in the final cabinet meeting that you hold in State House, and from that cabinet meeting you go straight to the budget speech, of course led by the president, because the president would be also in attendance. But now things have changed. Budget is more of an open secret, in the sense that most of these taxation measures, some of the levies and so forth, they are done through the parliamentary committee in consultation with the executive. And of course, I'm sure, like also the tradition, they are taken finally to the cabinet for final discussion and then released to parliament. So I feel there is a bit of disconnect. There is lack of effective communication, something we have always emphasized, that any good government must have good internal communication and also public relations with the rest of us, because it is critical what the government does, the rest of us ought to know, because that's the only way democracy thrives. More so given this constitutional requirement that public participation is a critical component of any process of government operation.
Then to what do you credit the insatiable appetite among, especially cabinet secretaries? Each of them wants to pronounce themselves on policy matters, even that which doesn't have to do with their own dockets. Is it that they have this thirst for power display, or they are still grappling with juvenile excitement that came with the appointment to governments?
Well, I think it tells a lot about a disorganized house. I've always said, and that is the fact, that cabinet meeting is a clearinghouse. The way in the old system, if you write a check from KCB to me, possibly have another account in another bank, all those checks would go to clearinghouse in Treasury, in Central Bank, and the banks will be exchanging those checks at that particular stage. So that you give me the checks that are mine, I give you mine, then we clear those checks, and within 3 or 4 or 5 days, those days it could take almost up to a week for the money to get into your account or my account, depending on whoever wrote the check. But the issue today is that you would expect the cabinet to be the final authority, because in the cabinet meeting, you have a lot of involvement of many ministries. For example, if you are talking about Ministry of Health, it will affect another ministry, even Ministry of Interior. So at that particular stage, you are able to discuss those issues and clear without a lot of problems. I will give you a specific example.
Sure.
The other day, there were officers coming from other countries to Tenwek Hospital. They needed to be assisted in terms of clearance fees. And that is in the Ministry of Interior. But it is something to do with the Ministry of Health. So if such an issue is taken to the cabinet, the Minister for Health will advise, the Minister for Interior will also advise, and they get to a compromise to see what is beneficial in that particular arrangement or that particular request. But the way I see, then something I should not forget, once a decision is taken, action is taken by the minister relevant or for the time being in charge of that particular department. Otherwise, any minister making a statement without the clearance of the cabinet is misadvising himself and is creating a situation where confusion is likely to prevail.
You've mentioned of advisory, and earlier on I was speaking to a former World Bank economist, and he said that perhaps the author of Kenya's economic woes would be maybe our president is surrounded by a team of praise and worship singers, people who are big on maybe pronouncing themselves, oh, hail the king, Hosanna, Hosanna, hail the king, long live the king, you name it. Do you think that could be the situation or scenario playing around Ruto's kitchen cabinet, or I should say close cabinet, when it comes to informing him on where or how to start the transformation journey of Kenya?
I heard the president yesterday struggling to talk about institutions in his government, which institutions don't exist. Today, as you know, whatever changes that came yesterday was possibly with the express permission of the president. My good friend Kimani Kuria, the chairman of the committee in charge of the budget, the way you used to pronounce himself, that if you don't have this issue of you don't want to pay circulation fees for vehicle circulation, you don't have to drive the car. If you don't want to pay these levies, then you go manufacture in Uganda, then export to Kenya.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. So it is actually that informed the public outrage. Otherwise, if Kimani Kuria was speaking a language that is friendly to the people, perhaps the demonstrations would not have been there. What does it tell you? It is the president who decides practically on everything else, but is now using the institutions sort of to cleanse the process. Otherwise, it is he himself who, from the beginning, because I knew about all these recommendations, and you could hear the level of pretense yesterday that we are not doing this because you don't want to apply the wrong law about income tax to be used on this particular issue. We are doing this because we want to protect manufacturing industry. Who told them about the industry? Were they told yesterday, or have they known from the beginning of time that the local industry ought to be protected for purposes of promoting jobs here in Kenya and reducing the need for importation to the country? These are some of the challenges that all the time when we inform them, we are not fighting them. We are just telling them, can you behave as a government? Or if you are not able to behave as a government, can you behave like a government? Because that's the only way Kenyans have gotten used to. Whether people talk of President Moi or any other president for that matter, this is a government that has behaved like it is one-man show.
The fight against this vice, which is state capture, by and large informed President Ruto's campaign manifesto, and even after he assumed office, his commitment was more pronounced that he's going to walk the talk on the fight against that particular vice. But looking at what you're saying minutes ago, would you then say that there is need for Kenyans to treat President Ruto's words, or rather promises, with content? Because from your optic, it seems that he was insincere with that commitment to fight state capture.
Well, he has proved himself that he talks the opposite of what he intends. Remember what he said when he was being sworn in on his inaugural speech. He made a statement that was casting aspersion on the character of the former president by saying that I will treat my deputy president better than the way I was treated. And yet, the exact opposite has taken place because he has allowed his cronies to run amok and create some chaotic situation that is likely to degenerate into some tribal warfare. Let's not pretend Kenya is still to go through the motions of accepting each other, that we are Kenyans and we are people from the same country, and our destiny is jointly, is collective. So that's my worry. He talks one thing and he means the other. If you are careful, you could see as Kimani Kuria, and even when Ishungwa was reading those statements, he was totally impatient. You could see pinching his ear and making certain movements that those who are good readers of body language would understand that this man is very impatient. He does not understand why all these details. He would have wanted one thing to be said. And of course, he does not believe anybody else has the capacity to put English words together and say something reasonable. That is how he treats his team. And that is what worries me. Because if you don't believe in your team, you are likely to destroy the very essence of your leadership. Because I have known, if you have a team of 10 people who are average performance, but you are able to make them synergize their effort, they are likely to do better than the most brilliant people in the land. Because when somebody is allowed that space to operate at best, it will give you the results that you never expected.
So it shouldn't be a one-man show, however smart you are?
No, it shouldn't
independent
be.
Thinker?
Leadership is providing the vision and allowing others to share in that vision. Once you have collective vision generated by the leader, things will move so well that you will be shocked.
But
That's what Kibaki did. Kibaki never called us for meetings every day. In fact, if you wanted to see Kibaki, you would create that motion yourself, book an appointment, and you would meet him, and you take him through whatever brief you want, and he will ask you questions. Once he's happy with the answers you've given him, he tells you, do it that way. That is the best thing to do. Hakuna kitu ingine ya maana, tufanye hiyo. But the president that we have today believes that everything must go through through his desk to ensure that he knows everything that you are doing. I don't know. He must be punishing himself. I'm worried for him because you cannot conceivably know everything about every ministry.
There's no way he can be a master of all trades, a jack of all trades and a master of them all?
Well,
because this is why you've seen him pronounce himself on climate change issues, on debt servicing, on public finance, and other issues, social issues. I think maybe he's one of those talented people Kenya will...
From his background, I would excuse him if he said, you know, something about climate change from Bodzu that he did at the university. Perhaps, and of course, culminating in doing his PhD research in my constituency at Sitatunga. But other things really should allow other people to do it. Yeah. In fact, I think you should listen to the speech of President Rigathi, that when you put a team of people who are professional enough and you allow them the latitude of freedom, they will give you better results than you expected. Simply put.
Politics has a place to define the development discourse of a country, and you were mentioning about the alleged fallout between the president and his deputy. However, skeptics to your argument would then say that this is a deliberate decoy to distract the masses from the current issues, say the finance bill of 2024. Do you consider this part of the pedestrian politics to shift away our attentions from the contentious issues Kenyans are grappling with?
Well, I don't know. It could be a mixture of both, but I think the main challenge is that the horse has bolted. And the rapprochement that they had seems to have dissipated. And if there is any hope of any relationship improving between the two, it will be a miracle. Look even at the body language of the deputy president and even the positioning. They seem to have been jostling him out of presence.
It was a bit frictional?
Yeah, in fact, look at the president. The president is here. I can't remember who was there. Then Kimani and Kimani. See, the two Kimanis.
They were flanking him.
They were flanking him almost alternately. Then Cecily Mbarire. And the deputy president was struggling to be seen behind. So that is against the protocol. You cannot just relegate him to that position. That is just one among. He's the second in command. He may not be deputy commander-in-chief, but he's second in command in terms of national apparatus and protocol and procedure and also precedents. It has happened before, it will happen again.
Until next time on Richard Mwanja, do enjoy the rest of your viewing.